The indigenous people and the Visayas. The indigenous people and Visayas are based in Antique, Capiz, Guimaras, Negros Oriental, Cebu City, and Northern Samar. In Antique, they constitute the Ate, Coyonen, and Bukidnon groups. In 2010, as reported, the total population in Antique was 546,000, of whom 3,030 were indigenous people, or a total of 5.5%. Their main source of livelihood are farm labor, laundering, handicraft, fishing, and hunting. The situation of indigenous people in Antique have been labeled such as food shortage with concomitant hunger is alarming in the Ati community. Next to that is the inability to procure school needs is a major reason why Ati children stop going to school. And every day is a struggle for the Ati to obtain food. Hunger and shortage of food supply are the most serious problems needing immediate action. The fact that the Atis do not plant root crops worsens the situation. Pero like the other indigenous people in a community have been doing farm labor, or in the environment they plant root crops and such that would make them parang their source of living. Next to that is the lack of land security. The Atis are situated along a coastal area of Sitio Igkaputol. They do not own the lands where they are situated. They have been transferring several times, although they do not want to relocate. One of the reasons why indigenous people are hindi natututukan because we don't really understand who they are. And then the fact that they are being neglected by the government or by the society is because of the fact that they are not such a parang very showy, or hindi masyado sila nakikita in a community because they resides in mountains and such, and lowland areas, in higher ed areas. So parang the access to education and such is mahirap because of the fact na sila ay nasa malalayong lugar and they don't have the proper knowledge to do it. That is the main reason why indigenous people should be given a chance to learn, to understand things, and to understand us, and for them to understand us, and for us to understand them. There is also an issue with violence against women. Because of this fact na parang violence against women is because violence against women related to alcoholism is the main reason. Ang growing problem ang violence against women and the community. Next is the poverty and income. We all know that indigenous people really suffers from poverty, and because they don't have like a reliable or yung constant na income. From labor is the primary source of livelihood for the Atis. Other sources are from laundry and nipa craft. Occasionally, they are livestock breeders, housemaids, and hunters. However, this do not provide them with sufficient income. Also, none of these activities is a stable income source. As I have said kanina, indigenous people doesn't have a stable income because of their the educational background, possible is their place or yung lugar nila is a higher end area. So pag a higher end area, syempre makikita natin na yung mga offices is created in rural or yung cities na mga lugar. So educational attainment for the Atis are very like issue gid because of the fact that they doesn't have to, or they don't have the chance to. Next to that is the job seeking in Negros. Job seeking in Negros is very crucial for the indigenous people. Due to the economic hardship, they seek better opportunity in Negros where they migrate and or work. However, it does not necessarily bring favorable returns. So another issue in the indigenous people of Antique is the malnutrition, infant and child mortality, birth registration and immunization, education, bullying, mother's educational attainment, and children at risk. So let's talk about education because it is more like completely very big issue sa indigenous community. They don't have the access to education because they are not capable of doing so. That is the reason why indigenous people really aims to know or really aims to graduate from a college level. That is the reason why sa mga documentaries makikita nyo is the first Aita like this, first Atis like this. So, yana, it does happen that because of their cultural background, they were afraid to go to school, or because of their economic hardships, they are not capable of doing school. So others have nakapag ano ba tawag, nakapag education, nakapag-aral with education just in elementary, because pag high school na is a much more bigger responsibility, and then after that they choose to have their lives, to be married. So there is also mother's educational attainment. There is also an issue back then that indigenous people in Visayas have encountered child mortality, or yung child teenage pregnancy, or at a young age they become pregnant and bearer of children at the age without the proper knowledge and such. So that result to children at risk because they become risky with the situation and their community. Next is the indigenous people and Capis. So Capis had a total of 720,000 population in 2010 with an IP population of 25,200. The main income sources are broom making, farming, livestock breeding, hunting, labor in non-IP farms, charcoal making, handicraft or the buon-buon, and the orchid and herbal medicine gathering. And indigenous people and Capis is also known for their herbal medicine gathering as well as other indigenous people. May pinaniniwalaan sila na herbal medicine do really help. Next is the economic reason for nomadism. Food adequacy is one of the most serious concern. They educationally eat only once a day, some eat only once the day before. So there is also this issue, like a lot of indigenous people have this issue na parang economic reason for nomadism or the food adequacy. Hindi sapat yung kinakain nila, or hindi sila nakakakain ng 3 beses sa isang araw. That is the main reason why indigenous people are far more thin from us or from other people in a city, because they live their life more crucially there, up there in the mountains. Next is the intimidation. In addition to economic reason, lack of land ownership and unbearable discrimination from lowlanders forced the Ati families to move from one place to another. It is not just intimidation because of lupa. It is an intimidation of their characteristic or their physical appearance is one of the main reason why indigenous people do well with these types of insecurities or intimidation in the community when they go out from where they are from going here. So there is also maternal and child health. So ayun nga, because of their not so big knowledge about things, nahihirapan sila to obtain maternal and child health, causing for child mortality, causing for teenage pregnancy in the community. So with such, there should be a proper acknowledge of the indigenous people and relate their health, or let them understand what this health means. Next is the water and sanitation. This is one of the very crucial things with indigenous people in the community. Wala silang proper water and wala silang proper sanitation, making them relevant to the disease or may cause them disease in the community. And we all know in a community, ang indigenous people is they believe in one community. So pag nagkasakit ang isa, mangyayari magpasa-pasa, and a bigger sense of a community may be affected as well. One of the reason again of this is the education na naman. Lahat ng indigenous people are really not so good in entertaining education as one of their sense. Next is the bullying because of their physical Bullying because of their physical appearance and such is one of the main reason also. Next is the indigenous people and Guimaras. The Atis of Guimaras constitute 3.8% of the total provincial population. They are involved in handicraft making, hunting, gathering, and paid labor. There is also known as the herbal gathering. There is also the lack of land tenure, poverty and income or the multiple income sources, food security and nutritional status, as I've said earlier, water and sanitation. There are no possible sources of clean water, toilet. There are also no possible sense of toilet or a public toilet. And next is the education. They also lack of sense of education because they are not studying due to poverty and poor nutrition. There are also possible students na out of school youth. So there are children at risk. Ati language. At first, while the Atis are able to retain their traditional practices such as their traditional healing system or yung kanina, herbal medicine, some of their culture are in danger or disappearing, including their language. Most do not usually use the Atis. Some understand the Ati language while some hardly do. However, when asked if they are interested in learning language and all said yes, a necessity of establishing a school for a living tradition or SLT was expressed to maintain their culture. Possible one is also the child labor, very rampant in an indigenous community, is the child labor. It is because children stop attending to school either temporarily or permanently due to the financial constraint, eventually becoming construction workers or housemates at an early young age with a little education or lack of land security and limited livelihood opportunities. Their options for survival are also limited. Next is the alcoholism. Alcoholism is prevailing in the Ati community. Women reported that drinking among men has been a problem. Violence against women has become frequent. There are two groups of indigenous people in Negros Oriental, the Ati, Ata, Magahat, and the Bukidnon. They normally work in haciendas, farm or make handicrafts. They mostly stay in the upload, hiking plains, hills, and covered footpath. The Atas in Baay City originated from Mabinay, Negros Oriental. They were forced to seek other lands because of poverty in the area. The Ati families have been there for about 15 years. The Atas of Mabinay are believed to have come from the first batch of Negritos who occupied the island of Negros during the pre-Hispanic time and are considered to be the last who inhabited the areas of Mabinay. A large percentage of them do not own the land they still. So the average daily income is 50 during dry season and 120 during rainy season, which are respectively 15 and 36% of the average daily income of Central Visayas region. They normally work on the farms for 8 hours from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. from 5 days a week. Problems in their community have been listed as the sense of hopelessness, maternal and child health or the lack of health information, hilot or traditional birth attendant, poverty and income, and job seeking in Negros. Child health or malnutrition, infant and child mortality, birth registration and immunization, education, bullying, or the mother's educational attainment that causes the children to be at risk. So, the indigenous people in the Visayas or the Guimaras. The Atis of Guimaras constitute 3.8% of the total province population. They are involved in handicraft making, hunting, gathering, and paid labor. The indigenous people in Guimaras is also known for their herbal gathering. They are also the traditional healing is widely practiced in the province and herbs are essential treatment. There are plenty of herbal plants in the mountainside and the hills. So that is the reason why they have also produced herbal medicines, or they are one of their source of income in the mountains is selling herbal medicine. Next problems with that, or next known fact about them, is the lack of land tenure. So the Atis are likely immigrants from Antique who intended to seek job in haciendas and Negros but were restrained in Guimaras. So technically, just because they are indigenous people, they lack of tenure, even though kahit sabihin nila na kanila yung lupa, is they are not capable of providing because there are no possible evidences and such. Next to this is the poverty and income. So next is the poverty and income. There are also multiple income sources that they have different livelihood sources. More than half of the household derive their income from more than 4 different economic activities: gathering herbal plants and medicines, making and selling handicraft, hunting and planting and gathering root crops. Other activities include gathering shells, construction works, and carpentry, gathering and selling scraps, and carving wood handicrafts. Despite numerous sources of livelihood, income from these sources is not enough. Next to that is the food security and the nutritional status. They usually eat twice a day, although there are times when they eat only once. Mothers have saved their food for their children. This is also one of the main reasons why indigenous people are being not capable of joining in a community because of their nutritional status. Water and sanitation. The water. There are 4 open wells in the community. However, they complain about poor access to water sources. Next is the toilet. Many households do not have any toilet facilities, that they are not capable of making one because the fact that their income or their sources is, in terms of their toiletry, is they are not capable of making such because of their source of income is not as much na makabuild sila sang toiletry in the community. And possible in a community, there are only 3 or 4 possible toilets that is available for them. Next is the education. Paulit-ulit na problem of the IPs is because of their education. One main reason because they are not capable of studying is because of the fact of the poverty and poor nutrition. They become out of school youth that is not capable of graduating and doing such as being a help to community because of their kalagayan. So those are the reason why indigenous people are not capable of doing such or being out in a community that is wide and free, because of those fact that they are neglected by the society.